The Sburb glitch FAQ, this is basic information. 03A, Player Terminology. The topic of Sburb terminology is a battlefield which is fertile in arguments. In particular, the fabulous titles that are assigned to players have generated a constant influx of problems. The official word for the game designation of a Sburb player is a mythological role. However, that's just way too long to type. In the FAQ community, this term is shortened as role. It may also be shortened as mythos, but that's usually found in very old FAQs. The roles assigned to Sburb players consist of two parts which have vastly different meanings and rules. The first part of the mythological role is addressed as the title, and the second part is called the aspect. Both of these things work together to make the player's role. Title and aspect are often used as adjectives to describe things that pertain to them. For example, you have title traits and aspect abilities. For the sake of simplicity, many of these words are capitalized, although it is left to your discretion. Titles and aspects are unique to a single player in any given Sburb session. They do not repeat themselves. For this reason, both parts of a player's role make up his or her identity, and they each have their own properties. For example, if a player happens to be a Knight of Rage, then this player will be concerned in this FAQ by all mechanics which apply to the Knight player and the Rage player. The player is essentially both of these things. That player will inherit traits which pertain to a Knight title and abilities which belong to the Rage aspect. The combination of both title and element has an importance of its own, as it dictates a player's specialization. If we take again the example above, a Knight of Rage would be specialized at doing Knight stuff involving rage. The player is bestowed power in relation to both his or her title and aspect. Therefore, the player is bestowed an even greater power when doing things related to both of them at once. Bugs which pertain to a title or aspect will transfer to any player which possess one of these designations. For example, if Void is bugged, then any given player who is a title of Void will have that bug. Hence, there is no need to treat individually every permutation of titles and aspect. It is a task which would be an endeavor in masochism, given all the possible combinations. So to make it clear, you do not need to find a specialized guide for your specific role. You will find its core glitches in this FAQ. Besides, there are good odds that you will not find an FAQ that concerns your exact role. Chances are you'll never hear of a person with the same role as yours. Please note that players in Sburb are visually identified by their aspect, which is represented by some sort of crude symbol which bears two thematic colors. You will find this symbol and its colors on every rune, banner, and puzzle that refers to a particular player. Titles have no symbols or colors of their own. The symbol will also appear somewhere on the body of players when they use their aspect to perform a wondrous feat. Depending on how the aspect is being manipulated, this symbol may glow on the palms, on the feet, on the back, in the eyes, and so on. The aspect symbol is called an ideogram when it is appearing on the body of players while they channel their aspect. Lastly, upon becoming God tier, it is the player's aspect symbol which will appear huge and bright on Skya, but try not to stare at it. It's not good for your eyes. I had a bro who was blind for half a session because of that shit, and of course he was a seer. What is it with those guys and eye damage? 03B, Sburb stats. Every RPG worth a damn has stats. Do you like stats? Well, you're in luck. Sburb throws them at you by the bucket. Or not. The vast majority of stats in Sburb are hidden. What does that mean? You can easily see a few basic stats which are there to pretend that life is simple, and then there's the rest of the iceberg that is chilling under the waterline. In order to gauge the hidden stats, you need to employ fact-finding abilities. The Seer player and the Sage players are the best titles for uncovering information. Alternatively, the Thief player isn't bad at it. The Witch and Mage players can reveal some limited stuff, and the aspects of Heart, Mind, Law, and Mist are all good for scrying. Finally, you can also reveal stats at the Panoramic Imaginarium, the House of Mirror, on your dream moon. But it's a bit freaky. I never liked that place. Man Grit. Well, we all know that one. You don't even need to install Sburb to see it. You can't see your total amount, but you are told whenever it is increased when you climb your Etcha ladder. The Man Grit stat is the stuff involved when you need to lift heavy things and put them down. It also makes you better at strafing when it increases. Who needs finesse when you can punch people's heads off? Man Grit also defines the size of the stuff that you can pick up in your Sylladex, so high Man Grit is equally useful for item-based shenanigans. Sburb will sometimes run a check on your Man Grit before proceeding with a scripted event. The game won't let you take quests that involve moving heavy objects if you don't have the minimum Man Grit required. Consorts will just shake their head and squeak something about subscribing to a gym. As a minor detail, Man-Grit is directly turned into a boost to Carapace reputation when speaking to rock-class Carapaces, the huge ones. They may even invite you for a drink if they like you. Do not accept. They cannot be beaten at a drink-off. Lastly, high Man-Grit increases the odds of successfully inflicting the Intimidated status on game constructs when flexing. Man-Grit glitches. It is well known that the Man-Grit of the player of Void is easily glitched. This can cause it to reach a value above the maximum level, and that's before the game even starts. You'd think a Sburb beta tester would have noticed that kind of slip. If you try to scan the Man-Grit of a player of Rain, the Man-Grit stat will be multiplied by the number of dupliclones that are out there. Weird bug. It doesn't do that for other stats. It's useful to help you track the total number of clones. Health Vial. Another stat, or meter in this case, which is not hard to spot. It's right there above your head. Your health vial gets knocked, you die. Simple enough. Refilled by vitality gel dropped by enemies or its equivalent from that your sprite can produce infinitely. Totally cool, until your sprite dies. Spoiler? Once that happens, you'll learn to restock on vitality through special abilities and using the Song of Life player command on Biophosphoradal Crystal Luminescence. I hope you're good with a musical instrument. Gel Viscosity. The basic defense stat. Gel viscosity makes it harder for your health vial to be knocked out, which means you're less likely to die. Oh, don't get me wrong, you're probably going to die anyway. You're just going to die less often. Gel viscosity is one of the rare stats that automatically increases when you climb a new rung in your Etcha ladder, though it doesn't happen often. This stat is also modified by the clothes that you wear. The God Hoodie gives a significant chunk since it's technically indestructible. It's a soft fabric though, so it won't stop your organs from getting crushed. Keep in mind that your gel viscosity only confers protection to physical attacks, such as normal strafing or when an aspect takes its elemental form. Your fortitude for special effects, stuff like debuffs, sleep, and mind control, comes from a different defensive stat called Semper Stand. Custom Stat. A blank meter that adapts to whatever you fancy doing as a personal hobby. Can refer to arguments, mind games, playing tricks, anything. It's completely inconsequential. The meter has a tendency to explode when shit is off the hook. In this case, it will regenerate back at its minimum value once you stop blushing. Now let's move on to the important stuff that you can't see without an ability scan. Flummoxy. Well, that's arguably the most important stat in the game, or at least it's the one you're guaranteed to go batshit crazy all over. Flummoxy is the special ability stat. The higher it is, the more you can do cool things that look like CGI based on your title and aspect. Also dictates your ability to conduct your aspect through an item like a wand, a book, a lighter, etc., and shoot it out, often jokingly called taking the wizard path instead of upgrading your Man-Grit. And no, this is not magic. This is just game abstractions at work. Magic is something fake that is not real. Scamperway. Defines how fast you move or perform actions. Has a base value that is very hard to increase naturally. Scamperway generally fluctuates because of ability-related bonuses. For example, the player of Time starts with slightly better Scamperway, and it keeps increasing through the whole game. Thieves and rogues get a huge bonus for a short time. Muse players get the best Scamperway bonus in the game through the passive trait Starlight Calliope, which is so high that it's probably a glitch. It's the same passive ability that clown underlings get, so it was probably cranked up on clowns and it indirectly benefited the Muse. Just as a warning, clown underlings are crazy fast bastards. Even when you stop time, they look like a blur. What is it with suburban overpowered clowns? Brainitude. Used for smarting and outsmarting. Important for absconding dangerous situations. Crucial for puzzle stuff. It's always been my lowest stat. Can't say I care. Item Mastery. How good you are at using items. The most important stat for all kinds of item-based shenanigans. Essential for the most strategic titles like Smith, Muse, and Rogue Thief. Allows you to cast special abilities through items, which is essentially like being able to cast an ability infinitely. Though if it's overused in a short period of time, your items can overheat and explode/turn to dust, so be careful. Item Mastery glitches. Item Mastery is broken on the Knight player. The title trait, In Shining Armor, gives maxed item mastery as soon as the game starts. The Knight can abuse this by exploiting powerful items earlier than normal. This is what fuels the popular exploit of having the player of Time do the time travel thing and gives endgame equipment to the Knight. The Knight will be able to use it immediately. Yes, even the items that can cast abilities. Knight players often start using special abilities through items before they even learn how to use abilities the normal way. The Instra Mastery stat is bugged and benefits weapons that are normally self-sufficient with their stats. Puppet kind, robot kind. Lad Pluck or Last Pluck. This is not a static stat but a meter, like with your health vial, except invisible. It stands for your mental endurance and it's what you spend to cast special abilities. Get hit on the head, it goes down, you pass out. Cast a big ability, it goes down, you pass out. It's basically how focused you are, or in the zone, like some people call it. The term is gender sensitive for some reason. For simplification, everybody just calls it pluck. Using flummoxy-based abilities will decrease your pluck until you risk to black out. If using a special ability is like water coming out of a faucet, flummoxy is the pressure of the water and pluck is the quantity. High flummoxy makes you cast bigger abilities, but you need a pool of pluck to back it or you'll be out of juice pretty quickly. It's rare that people have balanced flummoxy and pluck. Some people are great casters with a tiny pool of pluck, and some people can manipulate their powers all day long without being able to do anything complex. The pluck meter fluctuates a lot based on how you feel. Even with low stats, you can temporarily cast some crazy abilities when you're really in the zone. C-Rep White. Carapace reputation for the white side. Porcelain people hate you when you lose your Prospidian street creds. You need a lot of carapace reputation to be allowed to enter certain areas of the royal palace, like the cartography room or the royal library, which is all kind of unfair because it's bugged for Durstreamers and they have no reputation requirement. C-Rep Black. Carapace reputation for the black side. Ebony people will step on your grill if you can't durse it up. Also, black carapace reputation is useful to attack the Black King by surprise at the end of the game. Land Rep. The counter for land reputation. The game runs a lot of checks on this stat during your land adventure, whether it's about dungeons or quests or concert dialogues. The game wants this stat. You're going to spend a lot of time grinding it up. Oh, and when it reaches high enough, your land familiars will have a tendency to clutter around you if you stay still for a long time. It's funky. Sprite value. A weird stat which nobody understands very well. It defines your relationship with your sprite. Sort of. All I know is that if you messed up the Necro prototype and got yourself a sprite that doesn't care about you, this value will be set at 0. That's pretty bad. It can cause you to miss on getting your sprite pendant and other stuff. The stat increases slowly as you spend time with the sprite. As this value goes up, the sprite will hand out the sprite pendant, teach you the first player commands, a song, and then leave you. So it can be seen as sort of a countdown for until you lose your sprite. And yes, it's a thing that's going to happen. Sleep ratio. Defines how good your sleep is. Very context dependent. Is your bed very soft? Do you have a snazzy pillow? Did anybody die recently? This kind of stuff matters when it comes to having a good night of sleep. In return, this contributes to how well you are in sync with your dream self. Being your dream self will be a lot more clear and easy to remember if you have a good sleep ratio. Some people are bad sleepers with a naturally terrible sleep ratio. If your sleep ratio is too low, your dream self may never wake up. In extreme cases, the value of the sleep ratio can be so low that it's negative. This wraps around and causes someone's dream self to be permanently awake. Sleep glitches. This stat is duplicated in players that have 2 different states of relaxation for whatever reason. This leads to the double dream self bug. Some people have dream selves that are permanently awake because this stat is negative. Transmutancy. An important stat which slowly increases as you perform alchemy sessions. The higher your transmutancy level is, the more you'll be able to produce items with elemental properties, like they do magic things related to your aspect. Some titles give players a starting bonus to transmutancy, especially the witch/mage and the ward/air. Oh, and for some reason, players with the void aspect have a transmutancy level set to 0. Semperstand. This is a stat that confers mental fortitude and resistance/immunities to special abilities, strongly boosted by the Protector titles, Guard and Dame, as well as the aspects of Blood and Hope. This stat is also slightly bugged because it also helps resisting normal sleep. People with high Semperstand can pretty much stay awake forever. Pep Leader. The leadership stat makes people feel like doing what you suggest. There's a huge bonus to this stat for the first person to enter the session, which often ends up being the designated session leader for various reasons. Pep Leader glitches. Pep Leader can allow you to recruit NPCs that normally wouldn't follow you or listen to you. With enough Pep Leader, you can tell underlings to get out and they'll listen to you, if you are dead serious. A high Pep Leader stat messes with the exile communication algorithm. Expect your leader to act weird from time to time. S movability. Your ability to use your satyr ride. My favorite stat. The stunts will never end. Kiss Metal. The game performs a check on Kiss Metal when trying to perform the Kiss Revival maneuver. It's unusually high in the Prince/Bard for some reason. This stat is also supposed to have some ties with shipping, a mysterious feature removed from the game. What the hell is shipping? Nobody knows. Swag, an unused stat that used to be related to shipping, seems to relate to verbal stamina. YB, an unused stat that used to be related to shipping, seems to be found on people with an exotic look. An unused stat that used to be related to shipping, seems to cause consorts to like you. Verbal stamina, a special stat related to the strength of your dialogue options, useful when you need to convince/impress NPCs, also useful for increasing your fame through dialogues alone. You can grind up your verbal stamina at the verbalistic auditorium of your dream moon. Also, it has some kind of cross effect with the swag stat, but not with any of the other obsolete shipping stats. Weird. Question mark. A nameless stat that keeps going up when the player of rages using infinite rage causes the player to be identified as a different player as soon as it's above 0. This messes up all game identification procedures. It even overrides prophecies that call a player by name and transmaterializers security locks that are name specific. The player of rage is essentially another person altogether when raging. You've been warned. Question mark. Another stat with an invisible name, only found on players suffering from corruption due to contact or indirect contact with the others or the angels. The number seems completely random. You shouldn't even be scanning someone that is suffering from corruption. That's just asking for trouble. Your scan ability might bug out or flatly get erased. It's like trying to take a picture of a ghost and your camera explodes or something. O3C. Glossary. Offline.